At the beginning of the recap, we're treated to a stunning sea view with flying birds soaring above a bustling city full of life. A ship arrives at the harbor, bringing with it a group of eager adventurers, ready to embark on their grand journey. Among the many sights, a fisherman stands by the harbor, calling out to passers-by. Raymond, a golden-haired boy, whose excitement is evident as he looks around, taking in everything around him. His eyes sparkle with joy as he sees the vibrant city, filled with energy and possibilities. His friend Walker, noticing Raymond's overwhelming enthusiasm, playfully teases him about his excitement. With a mischievous grin, Walker gives Raymond a gentle push from behind, urging him to move forward and dive into the adventure that awaits them. The excitement is palpable as they begin their journey together, ready for whatever challenges the world has in store. Another adventurer, Taryn, knows Raymond is just as thrilled as the rest. After all, this is where their grand adventure is set to begin. This is the age of the adventurer, a time when people from all corners of the world embark on their own quests, seeking to become heroes. Suddenly, mysterious gates appear, leading to realms beyond where dangerous creatures lurk, creatures that no one has ever encountered in the Maple world. Many brave adventurers have perished within, but the promise of treasures and powerful artifacts hidden behind these gates draws even more adventurers seeking fame or wealth. Walker explains that they need bait to venture into these gates safely. The group listens intently, knowing they can't plan their next move until they understand what lies beyond the gate. With so many adventurers falling victim to the dangers, Walker suggests they acquire a slave to act as bait, a strategy the group agrees on. They make their way to the slave market run by the Gaffier Merchant Union, a place where this practice of using slaves as bait is common. The slaver leads them to two slaves in the back who are in good condition, and Walker quickly purchases them. Without wasting time, the group heads toward the portal. Walker marks the portal with a cut to indicate that someone is inside, signaling to the other adventurers. It's customary not to enter the same gate as another group, so this mark tells them they are ready to go. With a mix of excitement and nerves, the group steps through the portal, with Raymond feeling a bit uneasy about the teleportation process. However, his concerns fade as he takes in the striking new world around him. It's nothing like he'd imagined. Walker reassures him, urging the group to move forward. He explains that the gates don't typically open into monster-infested areas, so they should be safe for now. But since they can't use the same gate to leave, they must first locate an exit gate, ensuring a quick escape if things go wrong. Suddenly, their female companion notices something moving behind her, but it's too late. The beast is right there, its massive jaw opening wide, and with a sickening crack, it shatters her upper body. The others are instantly frozen in fear, but what's even more terrifying is that the monster isn't alone. It has brought a pack of its kind, all eager to feast on their flesh. Walker quickly casts a fire spell, taking down the beast that attacked Charlotte, and yells at the group to run. This is not what they expected from a portal spawn. One of the slaves, desperate to survive, begs to come along as Raymond hurriedly unties their chains. However, Taryn steps in, holding a knife to his throat, demanding that he stay put. Raymond apologizes and finishes the task, and the group races off, leaving the slaves to be devoured by the monsters, defenseless against the creatures with only their fragile bodies as a shield. Walker scoops up what's left of Charlotte and tells the group that she was a failure, but right now, survival is the priority. They need to move quickly and find a way out of this nightmare. Raymond, overwhelmed by the horror of the situation, falls into a full-blown panic attack. Taryn grabs him, shaking him and yelling for him to pull it together, to listen to Walker. Even though they've failed miserably this time, they can regroup and try again. Now isn't the time to give up. Focus on the present and keep moving forward. Raymond is certain that he will make it out of this alive, but the beast that followed them has other plans. With a mighty swing, it crushes him under its massive fist. Walker screams for Taryn, but Raymond falls into another panic attack. Walker attempts to fight back, using the same tactics that worked on their comrade, but the beast has learned from the previous encounter. It unfurls its long tongue and grabs Walker, pulling him in. The creature begins feasting on him, crunching his bones as it devours him. Raymond, now the last one standing, tries to run, but the beast swiftly catches up, clearly amused by his futile attempts. It opens its jaws wide and starts gnawing on his legs, turning his death into a slow, agonizing process. Suddenly, Raymond spots one of the slaves in front of him. Overcome with relief, he calls out, grateful that one of them is still alive. He begs for help, apologizing for his actions earlier, explaining that he had no choice. He can't make it out of here alone. Together, they can escape, right? The slave doesn't respond. Desperation seizes Raymond, and he screams at the slave to help him, to stop standing there like an idiot. To his surprise, the slave smiles and kneels down. Raymond doesn't understand, but the slave knows something Raymond doesn't. He's already dead. That's when Raymond feels the heavy weight of death closing in on him. His body, sensing the inevitable, accepts its fate. With a final smile, he resigns to the fact that he won't make it out. As the beast devours him, it swallows him whole, leaving only his hand behind as a fleeting memento of his existence. The beast charges toward the slave, but the slave remains unfazed, standing his ground. He knows that he will not die here, not in such a low-level place. He has already died before, and this is not where his end awaits. In the distant future, a chilling sight unfolds as a swarm of monstrous, flying beasts approaches a small band of adventurers. At the forefront of this terrifying army is Gornail, the king of dragons, a creature of unimaginable strength. A female adventurer, observing the looming threat, realizes with dread that the centaur's nest must have fallen, explaining how Gornail was able to break through. With that, all hope seems lost. Their once strong allies, the Signy's Knights, the Resistance, the Cross Hunters, have all perished, leaving only one last hero standing, El Palm, the final adventurer in this dying world. Palm stands tall, his face grim as he addresses the remaining fighters. The battle ahead will be their final one, no matter the outcome. Victory or defeat, this will be the end of their journey, the last chapter of their story. The battle rages for what feels like an eternity, and soon the battlefield is littered with the bodies of fallen comrades. Despite their best efforts, they manage to sever Gornail's head, but it's an empty victory. Gornail is no ordinary beast. His regenerative abilities make the blow almost meaningless. Within moments, the head begins to regenerate, and Palm realizes they're nowhere near the end. The mighty dragon, fully restored, charges again, and Palm, bloodied and broken, knows that their fate is sealed. With nothing left to give, he closes his eyes, prepared to meet his end. His life and their adventure, which had spanned countless years, is coming to a tragic close. But in that instant, Palm's anger flares. He slams his fist into the ground, cursing the world that has led them here. He cannot accept this fate. Philip, Jadon, Alexis, they gave everything to give him this moment, this one chance. And now, it's all slipping away. He will not let it end like this. Struggling to his feet, Palm, barely able to stand, summons the last of his strength. With a roar, he raises his hand toward Gornail, his body shaking with the weight of his determination. Every ounce of his life force, every last shred of willpower, is channeled into one final strike. This is his last stand, his one chance to end it all. No matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice, Palm will see this battle through to the very end. Palm's body betrays him at the worst possible moment. His spell falters, shattering as he coughs up blood, and before he can react, Gornail, with a malicious glint in his eye, releases a strike so powerful that Palm cannot even contemplate blocking it. The blow crushes him instantly. His life ends, but his consciousness lingers, trapped in the agonizing question of why it all had to end in such a brutal, final way. If only he were stronger. If only he had one more chance to fix everything. The thought gnaws at him. If only he had the power to make things right. Suddenly, a splash of cold water hits his face. Palm's eyes snap open, and confusion floods his mind. He's no longer on the battlefield, no longer facing the deadly Gornail. The pain and devastation are gone, replaced by a strange sense of disorientation. He looks around and recognizes the surroundings. It's the slave market. A place he remembers all too well, a place he once called home. The merchant standing before him is unmistakable, the same man who once controlled his fate. This can only mean one thing. Somehow, Palm has been sent back in time. He doesn't understand how or why, but he's been thrown right back into the past, back to the beginning of his story. At first, Palm wonders if it's all just a dream, but everything feels too real, too vivid to be a mere illusion. No, this is not a dream, this is regression. He had asked for a second chance, and it seems the world has granted it. Palm clenches his fists, determination filling his chest. He won't waste this second chance. He will ensure that the people who mattered to him will live, and that he will be stronger this time, more prepared. No more mistakes. As he surveys the surroundings, his eyes fall on Walker's staff lying nearby. He picks it up and inspects the fire arrow skill, noting that it's perfect for his current weak state. However, Palm knows this isn't enough. An adventurer needs more than one weapon to survive. His gaze shifts to the foot of a nearby fat man. Sometimes, people hide valuables in their shoes, and sure enough, Palm finds a ring tucked inside. When he slips it on, he discovers that it grants him telekinesis, a powerful skill that could be a game changer. Before he can process everything, the beasts close in, their bloodthirsty eyes locked on him. With no time to hesitate, Palm quickly handles the first wave of monsters. However, one of them manages to snatch his spear, and in a moment, the fragile weapon snaps under its force. Palm is left exposed, wide open for the beast's attack, but he's quick on his feet. He fires the fire arrow, taking down several more beasts, then uses the telekinesis ring to adjust the arrow's trajectory mid-flight, striking down more with precision. Despite the beasts being relatively weak, Palm knows he can't rely on the fire arrow forever. It's not long before he finds himself dodging another beast, realizing the fire arrow is on cooldown. Desperate, he plants his feet and uses the staff as a bludgeon, effectively taking down another creature. The staff reactivates just in time for him to fire another shot, wiping out more of the beasts. Charlotte, still alive against all odds, watches Palm with wide eyes. She sees him effortlessly wielding the spear and using magic. Her suspicions flare. This slave is no ordinary person. Palm, noticing her, is momentarily surprised. How is she still breathing? She should have been dead by now. Charlotte, trying to make sense of everything, questions why he has Walker's staff and the ring on his wrist. How did a mere slave gain such power? Her mind races, weaving together conclusions that aren't true, and she accuses him of orchestrating everything. Palm stares at her coldly, unbothered by her wild assumptions. After a long silence, Palm answers, his voice low but firm, "You've got it all wrong. If I had planned any of this, none of you would be alive. I don't care for your schemes." He takes a step closer, his eyes hardening. "I despise people who use others as pawns for their own selfish purposes." Eventually, Palm emerges from the portal, and the people of Lilith are left stunned by his return, especially considering he's a slave. His achievement is nothing short of miraculous. Alone and battered, he has somehow survived, defying all odds. But Palm knows this is only the beginning. His survival is a small victory, and the real challenge lies ahead. He's not done yet. He won't let his past life define him. With a renewed sense of purpose, Palm's first goal is clear. He must free himself from the shackles of slavery and forge a new path as a free man. This time, he will succeed. At the Gaffer Merchant Union's branch, the branch leader, Mr. Abbas, is informed of Palm's recent actions by one of his subordinates. Apparently, Palm emerged from the dungeon without a single scratch. Abbas, confused, doesn't see the problem after all. It's not unusual for someone assigned as bait to occasionally make it back alive. However, the subordinate adds that the adventurers who had purchased Palm didn't make it out of the dungeon. Palm was the only one to survive. This revelation catches Abyss's attention. It's strange, even more so because Palm didn't try to escape. Instead, he voluntarily returned to the Union, which raises suspicions. After all, people who have been reduced to slaves, particularly due to debt, are often sent out as bait. Even if they survive, they're still bound by their contracts. Abyss knows well that the only true way out of this life is through death. This is the harsh reality dictated by the Gaffer Merchant Union. So, he questions why Palm, who knows the cost of running away, would have come back of his own volition. The subordinate continues, bringing up an even more troubling detail. Palm has unlocked his first circle. This information sends a chill through Abyss. A slave unlocking their first circle, something almost unheard of, could pose a threat. Slaves who harbor resentment toward the Union can become dangerous, and if things go awry, it could end up costing the Union dearly. The subordinate goes on to reveal that Palm has requested a change in his contract. He wants to register as an adventurer. Abyss can hardly believe it. A mere slave dares to aim for such a lofty position, asking for something so far beyond his station. How dare he? Before Abyss can voice his frustration, the subordinate cuts him off, informing him that Rakan, a high-ranking executive of the Gaffer Merchant Union, has ordered Abyss to personally look into the matter. Rakan's interest in a slave is puzzling, and Abyss is taken aback. He knows that Rakan doesn't show interest in the lower ranks unless something truly significant is happening. Standing up from his seat, Abyss reflects on the situation. It's clear that he cannot rush to any conclusions yet. He needs to approach this carefully and find out more before acting. With the subordinate gone, Abyss is left to contemplate what this sudden turn of events could mean for Palm and for the Union itself. Abyss sits back in his chair, deep in thought, considering Palm's audacious request to become an adventurer. Under Queen Signa's, the idea of slavery should no longer exist, as it is said throughout the land. However, Abyss knows that this notion is little more than a facade. Humans have always been slaves not to a master, but to money, which in this world is called mesos. If they fail to repay what they owe, for any reason, they will pay it back through labor. This, Abyss reflects, is the true form of slavery in the Maple world, a system that even the so-called free men are shackled by. Abyss personally knows this system well. He himself was once a slave. When his only family, his father, succumbed to illness, Abyss was left with no choice but to borrow money. In his desperation, he bought black moss, a rare herb, from the Gaffer Merchant Union on credit. However, the price they charged him was steep, far above what it should have been, set at an outrageous 100,000 mio. Naturally, he had no way to repay the debt. He was summoned to court, where the judge quickly sentenced him to labor for the merchant union, forced to work off his debt over 6 long years. This system of exploitation had been his reality, and it had shaped his worldview. Now, after all this time, he knows it's finally his turn for revenge. As Palm walks into the room, he introduces himself, but Abyss already knows who he is, the slave who survived where others perished. Palm's presence is a bit of a puzzle to him, though. He is no ordinary slave, and this can't just be some coincidence. Abyss knows Palm is aware of his position in the Gaffer Merchant Union. He's the left hand of Rakan, one of the union's top executives. This makes Palm a significant figure in the grand scheme of things. Palm wastes no time and brings up the topic of changing his contract. Abyss, prepared for this, tells him that he's already reviewed the report on him and will make the change, agreeing to promote Palm to an F-rank adventurer. He thinks of this as a mercy. Palm, however, is not satisfied with the offer. He pushes further, asking for an E rank instead. Abyss is surprised by this request. An F-rank adventurer would be a huge leap for someone of Palm's status, but Palm is asking for more. Curious, Abyss asks why he wants such a high rank, especially when the Adventure Association has yet to even give him a rank. Palm, undeterred, explains that he has explored hundreds of gates over the past 3 years while still enslaved. This catches Abyss off guard, though he is quick to dismiss it, suggesting that Palm's experience in low-level dungeons is hardly impressive, more like bait work rather than actual adventuring. Palm, however, challenges that assumption. He asks Abyss, "Since when did monster hunting become the true test of an adventurer? The first adventurer didn't become legendary because he slayed monsters. He became legendary because he survived. The true virtue of an adventurer is getting back alive." This perspective strikes a chord with Abyss. He realizes Palm has a point. The information gathered from returnees who survive is worth far more than any treasure. Still, Abyss is skeptical. He acknowledges that surviving as a slave for 3 years is no small feat. But that doesn't mean Palm is cut out for high-rank gates. Palm has only entered low-rank dungeons. He can't honestly believe his survival skills are enough to succeed in more dangerous territories. Abyss feels that Palm is either naive or attempting to play him for a fool. Offering a risky contract to someone who might not survive long enough to repay their debt seems like a poor gamble. Abyss watches Palm with a sense of disbelief. How could a mere slave think so highly of himself? He's certain that Palm will never make it far. He'll die before ever achieving anything substantial. But despite his disdain, Abyss can't shake the feeling of repulsion towards him. Why does Palm stir such a reaction in him? He decides to give him a chance, a test of sorts. There's a gate Palm can try, one that only the bravest can enter. It's known as the 5th Gate and has claimed the lives of 12 different parties, each of them buried in its depths. Abyss tells Palm that if he's so confident, he should prove his worth by taking on this challenge. If he survives, he will earn his E-rank adventurer status. Palm accepts the challenge without hesitation, and soon after, he meets up with his new team. The leader, Shev, is a tank, and he's already heard the rumors about Palm being a slave. However, he assures Palm that no one in their group really cares about such things. They're all good people, and the past doesn't matter. Palm, grateful for the warm welcome, hopes they can work together smoothly. As the team starts talking, the white-haired member of the group, Max, brings up Palm's ability to use fire magic. He's curious about how it works if it's elemental magic. Then it should be decided by birth, right? Shev, having some knowledge of magic, explains that mages can only use magic from the elements they were born with. Any item unrelated to their element, magical or not, would be useless to them. The conversation shifts, and Shev explains that this mission isn't about monster hunting. Their goal is to retrieve the items left behind by the 12 previous parties who went into the gate. The Union will pay them 3,000 mo per item recovered, but the white-haired member, Max, complains that it's far too little. Items from First Circle adventurers are worth at least 7,000 mo. The other group members tell Max to stop complaining, and Shev wraps up the discussion, telling everyone to get ready. It's time to make some money. As soon as they enter the dungeon, the grim atmosphere becomes apparent. Shev takes charge, explaining that they will likely encounter hostile creatures soon. He suggests finding a place to set up camp first, and one of the members points to a nearby tree with plenty of branches, perfect for hiding and moving around. The team agrees, and after some effort, they set up their base. Shev decides to split the group into 2 teams to search the area. Max, the white-haired mage, and Tom will stay together, while Shev and Palm will go alone, each covering a different side. If anything happens, they are to use the signal and rush back. After some time of searching, they find no monsters or any equipment. Perhaps they set up their camp too quickly, and now they must venture further into the dungeon tomorrow. Shev asks Palm how his first mission as an adventurer is going. Palm hesitates, then admits that he's nervous. Shev, understanding the feeling, shares that even after being an adventurer for some time, he still feels nervous every time he enters a new gate. It's only natural. He adds that the courage to keep going comes from having good comrades by your side. Shev confesses that he felt sorry when he first heard Palm's story being used as bait. He can't even imagine what that must have been like. Chev tries to convince Palm to join their group officially, but before he can say more, Palm stops in his tracks. He's noticed some scratch marks on a nearby tree. Chev retracts his offer, sensing that something might be off. As night falls, the group gathers around the campfire. It seems the other team has had no better luck, and Chev tells them to stop discussing work while they eat. They'll have plenty of time to talk tomorrow. Palm, however, remains silent, uninterested in the social aspects of the evening. He sips his drink, lost in his thoughts. The night drags on, and as everyone begins to settle down for sleep, Chev notices that Palm hasn't moved. He's still lying in his sleeping bag. Chev calls out to him, but there's no response. Max, noticing Palm's stillness, smirks and comments that Palm is probably already deep in sleep. He's far too cautious for his own good. The others mix in a sleeping herb with Palm's food, one potent enough to knock out a person the size of 10 men. It seems the group is prepared to deal with anyone who might be more trouble than they're worth. Palm had eaten so much that, in truth, he would be lucky to survive the night. His captors had underestimated him, thinking they could use him as a pawn, but the loot he carried was far more valuable than they realized. The wand alone could easily fetch 10,000 mo, which meant they were in for a hefty payday if they could get their hands on it. Chev, thinking he had Palm cornered, stabbed into the sleeping bag with his dagger, expecting to hit something soft. But to his shock, the blade struck something hard. Palm was gone. All that remained was a log, placed deliberately to cover his tracks. Chev's eyes widened in disbelief. "Where the hell is he?" he screamed. Panic set in as Chev ordered everyone to find Palm immediately. But before they could act, a massive explosion rocked the camp. Planks of wood flew in all directions, and the tree that had served as their base suddenly erupted in flames. Everyone stood in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. Could it have been Palm? It seemed too chaotic to be anything else. "We need to get our supplies," shouted Tom, and Chev snapped back into action, scanning the area. His eyes fixed on something ominous in the distance, a gigantic, slimy monster looming over them, ready to strike. "That damn slave," Chev muttered under his breath, realization dawning. "He used us as bait." Without hesitation, they jumped off their makeshift base, just in time to avoid being consumed by the beast's massive jaws. Palm, hidden in the shadows, observed them from a distance, finding their panic somewhat amusing. He wasn't surprised by their betrayal. He had expected this all along. If they thought they could deceive him after he had been nothing more than a slave, they were sorely mistaken. A gate that had already claimed over 12 veteran adventurer parties was no place for naive trickery. Palm smirked to himself as he watched the chaos unfold. They should never have trusted him so easily. Did they really think someone with his past, someone who had been treated like a slave, would just fall in line with their plans? It had been obvious from the start that they had ulterior motives. As he surveyed the situation, Palm's thoughts turned to the true boss of this area. The monstrous creature wasn't just some random spawn, it was the boss. He had suspected as much from the broken foliage surrounding the area, but the sheer size of the creature still caught him off guard. Chev and his party were now in full retreat, but Palm could see the frustration in their movements. Chev was furious. This type of monster was a severe disadvantage to them. They had no chance of winning unless they were lucky, and even then it was a long shot. Palm's mind raced. This battle would be over soon, but not in the way they expected. Tom, still wide-eyed with fear, asks if Palm knows what that monstrous slime is. Palm nods, his voice steady as he explains, "That's a gold slime. It's a rare boss monster not typically seen in the maple world. It only appears out of red gates, and its body is entirely composed of pure acid." He continues, his tone serious, "This thing is the worst possible matchup for melee adventurers like you. But the most dangerous part isn't just its acid, it's something else." As if on cue, the gold slime demonstrates its terrifying abilities by unleashing a blast of acid, narrowly missing them. The acid splashes onto the ground, sizzling and forming a small pool of dangerous liquid. Palm watches with cold detachment as the creature uses Acid Arrow, a skill that lets it shoot as much acid as it desires. Tom's mind races as the danger becomes clear, and Chev's voice cuts through the tension. "Keep moving," he orders. "We need to get out of here. That acid arrow should have a 1-minute cooldown, so we'll get a chance to recover. We just need to destroy its core." Max, eager to end the fight quickly, decides to charge in, believing he'll have the advantage now that the slime's cooldown has been activated. Chev shouts at him to wait, to attack as a team, but Max is already too far ahead. As he charges, the gold slime releases another acid arrow, striking him down and cutting him in half. Chev stares in shock, not just from the horrific death of his teammate, but from the fact that the cooldown had barely passed. There were still 10 seconds remaining. Before they can react, the gold slime begins launching a rapid barrage of acid arrows in their direction. They're unprepared for such a relentless assault, and in moments, the ground around them is littered with the remains of their bones, each one beginning to decay from the acid. The team is wiped out, and only the remnants of their corpses remain.